And my AI companion is just going to do a summary of everything. So, welcome everyone. It's so good to see you on this, the Wise Move Society Wisdom Well. We're here every Tuesday, actually, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, European time. Um, but every first Tuesday of the month, we have a guest speaker, and this time it's Gary Irwin-Kenyon, and I hope I pronounce it right,
Yeah.
from Canada. And it was so nice that it was actually Vicky. Oh, well, I haven't seen for a couple of months, so it was really great that you had recommended Gary to be here. So thank you for that. We're just going to start, and you may hear I do have a little bit of a cold, so I try to talk as little as possible. And I know you, those who know me, know that that might be a challenge, but I just give the floor to Gary, and I hope that out of this hour he will do a lot of the talking. So, Gary, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ingun. And in terms of what we're doing, we talked about a little conversation. First, I'll say a few things about the topic. Um, then, although I can't demonstrate, I want to show you two moves that I'll describe, and you can try to follow along because I can't actually fix it, so I can demonstrate them. But that's okay. And then you were suggesting there'd be time for questions or conversation. So if we keep it informal and you want to kind of direct that a little bit to say, okay, now maybe we'll do this or do that, that would be great for me. Okay, thanks. And hope so you won't have to talk too much. Um, so just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm Dr. Gary Irwin-Kenyon. I'm a gerontologist and a Tai Chi instructor. I taught for 35 years at St. Thomas University in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And I actually came to New Brunswick to start the program in gerontology. Um, and I retired several years ago. And since then, I've been doing things with my book that I wrote towards the end of my career, which is we'd say a non-academic book. It's more for an everyday, for all of us type of book, rather than more just pure theory. Um, and since I always forget, I'm going to just put the book up here to give you an idea of what it looks like. And it's available in Amazon. Um, so this is what it looks like, the cover called Pathways to Stillness. And Vicky's got her copy up there too. Um, the uh, the cover is actually the wharf in St. Andrews by the Sea where I live. My daughter's boyfriend took this photograph, and when he sent the photographs around to us to look at, I said, "Wow, that has to be the cover for my book. That's really neat." So that's where that uh, came from. Um, I also have a great fondness for the Netherlands and Amsterdam in particular. I've probably been there 20, 25 times and stayed at the same bed and breakfast on my pronunciation, of course, won't be quite right, on the Kaiserslautern, called Hotel Kaisershof, and became one of my best friends was the owner, Mary DeVries, who owned that for many, many years. And so I don't know, people say, where should I stay in Amsterdam now? I don't know because I never stayed anywhere else. um, so as I say, I have a fondness for the Netherlands and for Amsterdam. Um, so we can, I'm going to say some things and maybe we could have questions, and or if somebody wants to make a point, it doesn't need to be a very formal lecture. So we could just have that happen anyway, anytime, really. Um, so the book is called, and the talk today is called Pathways to Stillness. And I guess one of the first questions is, well, what is stillness? Um, there are different ways to approach the topic. One I like to use is goes along with the modern science, um, that we have two parts to our brain, doing brain and a being brain. And in our culture, we tend to use the doing part of our brain most of the time. And what happens with that is, well, the origin of that is our animal background. So the idea is the lion's going to eat us, so we have to get charged up with energy to protect ourselves, to survive. And the thing is that that's meant to be a short-term protection for us. But these days, it's unlikely the lion is going to eat us. But most of us find ourselves in stressful situations. I think it's safe to say that right now the whole planet is under a kind of stress, um, and huge changes, not just small changes, but um, changes in structure, changes in many ways that we're starting to say, when it was that way, now things are quite different. So there are huge changes taking place, and we're all familiar with that. So um, if we try to use doing the doing part of ourselves, we will just what's happening to a lot of people is different kinds of burnout, that you can't keep that kind of stress up without having something happen to you, whether it's work, family, inner things, health, finances, you name it. And the older we get, these things seem to get more complicated. Um, so if we're, the tendency is that we will start to despair and burn out. Is there an alternative to that? Yes, there is, but we don't value that. We don't seem to value that as much as the doing and achieving and making more of something. It seems that we value that. And so something like stillness or the being brain, which has to do with um, acceptance, compassion, self-compassion, compassion for others, and also would include stillness, which means, one way to say it is just stop. Just stop what we're doing. The simplest version of stillness is to sit down, and I'll give you a little bit more of this later, but just to sit down and follow your breath. Now, that sounds easy, but for many of us, when we try to do it, we think we're going crazy, because in Tai Chi is another part of what I'm talking about today. In Tai Chi, we talk about the monkey mind, that the mind is always jumping from one thing to the other. And stillness, Tai Chi, being, try to help us to slow down and take a break. Again, a lot of us feel if we take a break, we're wasting our time. There's a monastery in northern New Brunswick here that I used to go to for quite often. They've now closed, unfortunately. But one of the monks there I used to talk to quite a bit. And I was telling him how a lot of people think what they do is a waste of time, that they're just praying and doing nothing. And his answer was, he was actually originally from Britain, and he said, "And what is wrong with wasting time?" And I thought, it's very true. Um, it's not quite true that they do nothing all day because they ran a farm, but the idea is that um, we 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 try to slow down and do nothing at first, perhaps even for a few minutes, um, and then you may find that you at first you want to go back to the doing because it's safer. Um, but if you just try being a little bit at a time, you may find that it starts to grow on you. So when we move away from the doing brain, we're moving away from fear as well. Um, a lot of what the doing brain does is based on trying to be in control of things and in fear. Again, being afraid of the animal getting us. Um, being the being part of ourselves is, as I mentioned, is more about compassion, acceptance, and letting go. A big part of things that happen to us in life um, are really out of our control. And if we go back to what I just said about the big picture right now, there's not a lot we can do with with a lot of these big things. Um, but we can learn to let go or let be, let things be. So in Tai Chi, we talk about this giving in, not giving it up, but giving in. Um, so when a force is coming at you, if it's Tai Chi, maybe another person, I don't mean in a fight, I mean in just practicing. We practice things together. Um, and when a force is coming at you, rather than fight, flight, or freeze, the big three, we talk about following. So when something's coming in, you allow it. You allow it, you accept it, and allow it to come in, and then try to direct it gently to a healthier outcome. So that's a big part of um, the being of Tai Chi and of encountering stillness. In order to encounter stillness, you do have to slow down and allow things to happen. You can't force. Another thing about stillness, though, is you can't force it. It seems to have a mind of its own, and yet it is universal. It's part of our inner life and part of the universe. Consciousness, stillness is there all the time. But if we don't kind of become curious about it, take a look at it, then we won't find it. Um, so another topic here that's important and that the book is about is aging. If we aging with stillness means that again when experiences happen to us, I mean pleasant experiences, we have no problem, right? We just say, okay, let's have more of that. But other kinds of experiences that are kinds of suffering, you could say, pain or suffering or loss, those are ones that we can't control very well. And we need, if we can find stillness, that will help us a long way. Now, some people say that many of us encounter stillness by way of suffering. Another spiritual teacher I like is Eckhart Tolle. He talks about that as well, that a lot of us are well, he has this language, we're dragged kicking and screaming to enlightenment. So for a lot of us, it takes something, uh, some kind of loss, as I say, or suffering that brings us to an awareness of stillness. Um, Although I've always been curious about meditation, philosophy, Tai Chi, all those things for a very long time, it was a personal experience of my own that you could say made everything more intense, made me more um, interested in stillness, find some practice of stillness for my own life, and also for become more sensitive of what other people are suffering or going through. And so I have always been interested in sharing these ideas. So um, that's why I wrote this book and uh, share it with whoever's interested. So those are some introductory, general kind of comments about stillness. Maybe I'll just mention. So I've mentioned Tai Chi and I mentioned stillness. Um, there's another term or concept that works here that I use for some of my own work, and that's called narrative care. Um, Another colleague of mine at St. Thomas, Bill Randall, and I developed a subfield of gerontology called narrative gerontology, which as you might guess, is based on people's life stories. So we use we've developed a terminology and a way of looking at aging from the point of view of people's life stories. And that in turn connects a lot with meaning, with the notion of meaning. So it's more about inner aging, about what happens to us inside, rather than outer aging, which is about, physical, cognitive, and other kinds of changes that take place, many of which are not very pleasant. Um, but narrative gerontology talks about what we find meaningful in life. And the other little component of this is our stories are made up of chapters and characters and plots like other kinds of literature. So you can apply that to your life. Um, but there's also, I believe, a quiet center or stillness, if you wish, a quiet center of our story, of who we are. And where I have come in contact with that mostly or mainly is through teaching Tai Chi to folks who have dementia. Um, it's an interesting, I'll give you the background. Um, I was teaching Tai Chi at several nursing homes in the area here um, to the regular group who are frail but are able to do the class on a usual basis. Um, One of the staff people asked me, "Would you like to try a class with our dementia village?" And I said, "Well, I've never done that, but why don't we try?" So I gave a couple of classes, and it was quite remarkable. Um, Everybody was quiet, and afterwards, the staff person said, "Well, this is very unusual because these folks are not quiet, normally not quiet for very long at all, and they're all very quiet while you're doing your class." So this is, not on hard-based research or anything, but for me, um, it's like the disease disappears when we're doing the class. And incidentally, I actually have a Dutch colleague who I talked to about this, and she said a similar thing happens to her when she teaches her classes. So there's something about stillness that is um, part of who we are. And so I put that in terms of narrative, that it is part of our story, that we have this inner peace or inner sense. Um, no, that's, I would say, people who practice, talk to practitioners who use music therapy or art therapy, and it seems to work similar to Tai Chi. Um, that there's no, I think partly what helps this to happen is that when I go into class, I set it up in a way that there are no expectations. I'll say things to them like, um, "You don't have to do anything here." Probably for a lot of your life, you've been asked to do things at work or school to achieve something or accomplish something. So you don't know whether you're going to measure up or not. So when you do this, you don't have to do anything. You can go to sleep, you can listen to music, or try a few moves. And I can just see the stress levels come down. And they will, many of them will try, or they'll just watch, or they will have a nap. But it's quite remarkable um, that this is possible to happen. And so that makes me even believe even more in stillness. So I'm going over quite a few topics here. If anybody has any comments or questions at this point, we can do that.
I have a
Yes, maybe
comment.
I can
Oh,
ask you some or share maybe something. Thank you for sharing everything that you did already. I I believe, and it's a little bit personal experience, but it's also what I see in people around me, that getting older, it does give you the space to have more stillness, because there's a lots of things that you don't have to worry about anymore. You don't have to worry about how far I get in my career, or how are my children if you have children. I mean, still worry about your children, but it's not that intensity of, when you're in these early years when everything is still forming and shaping, and you feel that you have to make something of your life. Somehow the expectations are pretty high, and I think once you grow older, you know yourself better, you get more confident in your skin, or how to say that. So it seems easier to get to a form of stillness and more being than doing.
Yes, well, I agree with you. And there are, speaking about getting older, um, there are many different kinds of pathways to stillness. So you have sort of the formal, you could say formal ones like, meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, prayer, those kinds of, you could say, spiritual practice, not necessarily religious, but spiritual practices. But then you have a lot of other pathways to stillness where people find meaning, you know,
Hmm.
something you do that gets you up in the morning. Um, I know the Netherlands is full of wonderful gardeners, and I love watching movies with of the Netherlands with all the wonderful gardens. Um, of course, we have gardeners here too, but so you have a lot of other different. I have a person in town where I live in St. Andrews by the Sea, and she makes miniatures of, it could be a boot or a house or a little barn, and she puts all these miniature beings in there, objects and people. It's quite amazing. They're so small. Um, so I saw her, she gave a demonstration or an exhibit at the art school, the art center here, and I said to her, I wrote this book, Pathways to Stillness, and I said, this looks like a pathway to stillness for you. Is that true? And she said, well, yes. She said, I go down in my basement, I set up my miniatures, and as soon as I'm there, the world disappears. And the second part of it is I can put anything in there that I want to. so, so it's another example of, and there are many others. People have different sorts of collections, or could be places they like to go. For me, I love to go to my favorite coffee shop. Um, I mean, coffee shop. And I'm aware of the Netherlands. um, and I love to go there sometimes by myself, just to read or to watch people go by. And that's really a very peaceful place for me when I'm troubled. That helps me quite a bit. I mentioned this monastery. That, of course, is a big one. And I am able to go there for at least a couple of days and stay quiet. I have some friends who tried to do that and say, that's not for me. I have to, actually, my wife said that too. For sitting still, being quiet, it's difficult for her. But you could put her on the beach, walking, just wandering around on the beach, and that's a big pathway to stillness for her. So there are lots of different ways of practicing stillness.
Gary, before you go to the next, I already see three hands up. So
Okay,
there's a question in the So let's start with Mary Jane.
Yeah, not so much a question, Gary, but for the group, just to reiterate, breathing. I can't stress enough how important proper breathing technique can reduce stress in one's life. I've said many times that I think it saved my life. So there's a physiological reason why breathing makes a difference to us, and so again, it's just in support of one of the ways that you're sharing on how that can help us come into a stillness. Yeah, stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system and let it do its work. So thank you. Yeah.
Right. And really,
Wonderful.
As I read recently or heard a teacher say it, we are not actually breathing, we are being breathed. We're being breathed by everything that has every sentient being on the planet. It's an interesting perspective to turn it around. We don't control our breathing beyond a certain point.
But we can.
Oh, yeah, to a point.
And that's the beauty about it. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Jane. Pam, you're next.
Gary, I've really enjoyed what you've shared up to this point, and I'm curious about something. You've used the word narrative care, and narrative gerontology, and I'm curious why you framed this pathway to stillness as narrative, using that term. Is it because you started off with writing people's stories, or why did you choose that?
Well, I've always been curious about the notion of meaning, of what's meaningful to people. And so I did that for quite a while. And then it was actually conversations with my colleague, Bill Randall, who had written his first book was called The Stories We Are. So the idea is that we're not only have life stories, but we are life stories. Our identity and who we are is made up from a story. That's what we would suggest. So when I wrote the book, I was interested in aging, narrative, and then the stillness part started to become integrated with that stillness and Tai Chi. So I ended up applying the narrative to all kinds of different situations and people, including my own life. Um, so that's how that originated, to
Mhm.
integrate narrative with story, and that stillness center of our story. That's how it connects.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I guess the thing I'd like to add is for me and for a number of people that I know and I'm close to, being in nature by yourself to me is a pathway to stillness. It's a
Absolutely.
pathway where when you see a sunset or you see just natural beauty, it's like you're just full of awe, but and it makes you pause or gives you pause, I guess I would say. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Right. And all you need to do is sit down and do nothing.
Exactly.
Be and be.
And
Be.
be,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. And I want to add to this storytelling, Gary, also is I've been reading in your book the last couple of weeks, and the first so many chapters, there's a lot of storytelling there, and that is especially also so how do you come to that stillness? What is your reason to choose stillness, to become more still? So it's also about what is happening in your life. Is that trauma? And there's also one of the questions Nicolette asked. So what is regarding how finding stillness can help with dealing with loss, pain, or suffering. And I think, especially also in those stories that you share in the beginning of your book, that there is this thing happening in your life that brings you to stillness. Did I understand that well?
Yes, yes, I think that's true for most of us. I mean, for some of us, we come to it naturally, or perhaps being surprised by being in nature by accident or something like that. But for most of us, um, it's some sort of trauma or suffering or loss. Again, as we get older, that could be finances or illness or loss of a loved one. Um, so for many of us, it's those experiences, and we would say, well, I don't know if I would have designed the universe that way, that we have to suffer. Um,
Hmm.
but there's more and more um, people talking about this from a research point of view too, that for some reason suffering and loss has a purpose in our lives, and if we're able to find meaning in suffering, one of the patriarchs of that is Viktor Frankl, who is for many of us a role model, somebody I taught my students about for many, many years. And so there are famous, more or less famous people, but there are also many, many, all of us, everyday people who find, who are finding and do find stillness in suffering. And by the way, I have a television show that I do with at the local station here, but it's also on YouTube, and it's also called Pathways to Stillness. And one of the things we do in that show sometimes is invite people to send in their comments. And so towards the end of the year, before the holidays, we did 3 episodes on grief and talking about grief, and then grief over the holidays, because
Hmm.
as we know, that's different. That becomes quite different. Um, well, in one episode, we had 100 people write in, and it's a small town. St. Andrews is only about 2,000 people, although they could have written in from further away. Um, there were 100 people who wrote in their personal stories, all of which were, I had a terrible experience, and they talked a bit about it, but they also talked about how they remember somebody over the holidays, or how they have found new meaning in their own life as a result of these experiences. It was quite remarkable. We were heartwarmed over so many people feeling comfortable writing into us.
It's great. Gary, I want to ask Nicolette, is this a little bit what you wanted to hear?
Yeah, I get it. But I think also I actually looked in the meantime, Gary. I can't get your book on Amazon. It's somehow out of print or it's not lived in the UK. So I think it would be quite nice if I can get a book and read it through. I think there will be more in there than obviously you have enough time to explain here. And I do agree with all the things like stillness. Like I love walking in the mountains. Well, if it's somewhere quiet, it's there. So yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Long walks in the mountains, Gary. She did the Camino last year.
Oh yeah.
800 and so many kilometers, a lot. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to Donna. Donna, you're next.
Hello. This is just so strange and apropos for today. I wasn't aware of what the topic was, but of all things, what happened to me this day is just kind of like it's pulling, it's just the timing. So one is that just before I came here, I was at the dentist office. I had to get some fillings done, and I literally fell asleep on the chair with my mouth open. And I was like, she was putting a filling in. And I was like, she asked me a question, and then I kind of like, oh, and then she said, I said, I fell asleep. And she said, I know, we all saw you. We couldn't believe it. It was kind of funny, but it was just sort of like just lying there, having something done to you. I had to be still, but I ended up falling asleep. But that was kind of weird. But this led me to today. But the other thing that happened, and it was this morning, and I was taking a shower, and it reminded me of this book that I had read, and I have used it, some of the techniques in it. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Bored and Brilliant. And it's written by Manoush Zomorodi. And she says essentially that we don't do enough. We are not bored enough. We don't daydream enough. We don't sit still and do nothing enough. And she says some of the most creative things can come out of just doing nothing. And I recalled in my past that was true. I'm always like, we're on our phones, we're on our screens, we're all looking at things. But I recall times when I just sat on a train and stared out the window, and then things just came to me, like ideas or thoughts. And that happened this morning when I was taking a shower. And my thoughts were drifting. And I came out of the shower and I wrote 2 pages of ideas just from that shower. And it was like, whoa, this hasn't happened to me in a long time. It's something I wanted to write about, because the other thing I saw was a really brief YouTube, or it was a reel on FaceTime by Rick Steves. And he talked about traveling and bringing lessons home from the travels. And he termed something called meaningful travels. And I just came back from a month of traveling in Thailand and Vietnam. And my friends are asking me, how was that? What did you do? And again, my thoughts were drifting to that, and the photos that I took and the people that I met along the way, and the events. And that's what came about it. And I'm going to write a little essay about it with my photos. And anyway, so the stillness for me has also opened me up for creativity throughout my life. It's just like, if I'm not doing anything, if I'm supposedly daydreaming or being bored or doing nothing, ideas come to me. And it feeds me. I don't know. It's interesting. I understand what you're saying and some of these other things. Focus. My brother is very involved in seeking enlightenment, for example, and we talk about spirituality. But I just wanted to give my 2 cents about just being still and doing nothing. Things come to me, ideas, creativity opens up when I'm like not doing anything. I'm just like just not thinking and things come to me. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but that's just happened today. So I thought this is quite relevant, this conversation. Sorry.
Yeah, instead of doing, you just try to let it all be. And it creates a space between us and our consciousness rather than being sort of trapped in the small mind, the monkey mind that's trying to come up with some sort of technique or expert or money to solve a problem. Many things can't be solved at all that way. But we can just let it go, and who knows, as you say, who knows what will happen. Do you want to try?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. There's more. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do we want to try one movement?
Yes, let me add one thing to Donna's thing because we just talked about it before we started. I have this daily wisdom from Jay Shetty, you know, most of you will know him, the monk. And he said yesterday, when you create space for silence, you can hear between the lines. And Donna, that is what I hear you do now. You hear between the lines. I think that was very wise. Patty and Deborah, we're just parking you for now. We're coming back. Yes, please, Gary, do some exercises.
Yeah, let's just do one movement. As I said, I can't go back far enough here to show you, but I think I can describe it. It's called the wave. So if you can sit up in your chair, if you're sitting up, if you can sit up, and put your arms down with your palms turned up. Yeah, so the arms down by the side, with your palms turned up. And then you take a nice breath. You'll be able to see part of me. Let's see here. Take a nice breath, come up about shoulder height, and then turn over and float back down to the bottom. Yeah, that's it. So starting with the palms turned up, arms out, nice breath up, shoulder height, and gently try to coordinate your in-breath going up and your out-breath coming down. Do a couple more. In, nice breath, turn over, and gently just float down. Okay. Again, in, up, and down. Let's do one more. It's just a nice breath. Okay, so coming up, let it stretch in your palms and down. Yeah. So that's a Tai Chi or Qigong, one of the ones, and I have description of that in the book. And the idea of that, of those movements, is that when you're gently trying to coordinate your arms coming up and going down with your breath, you may have noticed right away that the monkey mind is starting to disappear. It might come back again, but that brings us to the present moment. And they say in the present moment, there's no anxiety, no depression, just presence. So that's one of the basic moves that I use. There's quite a long set of Qigong and Tai Chi, as you probably know. Some of you may be familiar. But that's the idea. I've given this demonstration to groups at conferences, and a number of people afterwards always say, "Wow, I never felt like this before. I never stopped to breathe and do anything like this. This is nice, thank you." And I could hardly believe that, they had never experienced that before. But I guess that's part of our culture, that many of us are not used to that.
Wonderful. Did you want to do something else, or can we continue, Gary?
Well, I could do one that some of you may be familiar with, and that's just put your thumb in your navel and your palm on top of it, and then your other hand on top of that. And all we're going to do here, there's different variations of it, but all we're going to do is try and picture your breath coming in and out of your stomach area. You can have your eyes open or closed if you want. Just picture your breath coming in and out. So don't force anything if you're not used to. Many of us breathe up here, and they say as we get older, we tend to breathe up here. So this is helpful to bring the breath down to your tanchen or your center below your navel. So for the first part, if you can literally physically let your breath come in and out in the stomach area. Otherwise, just picture it. We'll do a few breaths. Okay. And just for those who would like to try, the next step is to try to gently press in and under your navel and draw your breath in. And then allow your tummy to expand as you breathe out. So pulling up and in, don't pull any muscles. Nice breath, and allow your tummy to expand as you breathe out. We'll do one more. Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary. And I really agree with what Mary Jane mentioned earlier. You know, your breath, your breathing, you know, that already can help you in so many ways. So I love it. It helped me in quite some situations that I thought, okay, you know, just breathe into it, nothing else. You know, I hear it. It can be, you know, you can be angry, you can be frustrated, you can be anything else, or that you feel something. But just sit and breathe into it. You know, that already relaxes and it brings you to that stillness. And problems get less big, you know, they get smaller, and the feelings that you have get less intense. So thank you for that, Gary. And I want to mention one thing that Robert said in the chat about stillness. The Fifth Symphony Piano Concerto, the Emperor's Concerto for 43 minutes, stillness, lovely, by Beethoven. Is it really only stillness? They're not doing anything?
Doing nothing, just listening, and your mind drifts away and all kinds of creative things come up in your mind.
Oh, fantastic. So,
The
okay.
other thing I learned,
Yeah. Yeah.
one second. I learned that early in my early days, way back when I was in my early 20s. I was a ship's officer traveling around the world, all the oceans. Now imagine you're in the middle of the Pacific in the morning between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock, my duty hours. And then the sun comes up, nothing to do in the middle of the ocean. There is nothing. So you just travel. That stillness. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Renee said, at sea, you're so right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. To beach.
Wonderful.
Patty. Thank you, Robert.
Well, I have found out we had a walk here, one of our parks. They had the park ranger. We did a stillness walk. So it is getting real popular, which helps me a lot because meditation was always hard for me just to sit still. But when I can go out in nature, like Pam was talking about and everything, we went and listened to the leaves, and just the different sounds, especially in the wintertime. It was a beautiful walk that we did with the ranger. So it is getting really popular and just another way of being the stillness, which I really love.
Thank you. And there's ever more urgency for us to discover some form of pathway of stillness.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Now I'm giving the floor to someone who organizes these stillness walks. So, Deborah, the floor is yours. You have to,
Well,
yeah.
Gary, this is such an important topic because look at here, we're all talking about it, but a couple of things have come out of Ingan and Mary Jane about the breath, and the breath is our anchor. It's a beautiful anchor that can take us inside, and I loved your very simple. For me, and I think everybody can agree that when we can get in contact with that beautiful stillness, there is that element of bliss.
Right.
And the bliss, when we're in stillness, if you can feel that sensation, the whole body just expands, opens, receives intuition or whatever. And it's so healthy for us because the cells are going, thank you. Oh my goodness, you've been busy all day and I've had to work really hard. But as soon as we're quiet, the cells relax and they get to do what they are supposed to do, right? Instead of being pushy. So I love the fact that you're doing this. It feels, I'm sitting here and in bliss hearing you talk. And that. So thank you very much. It's so good for our health.
Thank you. And it does take practice. It's stillness is a process, I think. It grows as the more, like anything else, the more you put yourself in that environment, the stillness environment, the more that it becomes stronger, and the more you can hopefully deal with bigger issues. At first, I think when you start practicing, you may be able to deal with smaller issues, but with practice, you can hopefully deal with bigger issues. In that world, there's never any guarantee, but it does. The Chinese philosophy about the water dripping, that the water just drips, drips, drips until it wears itself through. That's a very Chinese or Taoist Tai Chi thing to say. What'd you say about bliss? I read this from a Vietnamese monk, a book written some time ago, and he talks about when you're able to be in that space, it's like there's nothing to do and nowhere to go. Like everything's okay the way it is, and if you get any of those moments, they're pretty precious. And again, you can't expect if I do 10 hours of meditation, that's I'm going to get that would be doing the practice rather than being a practice, right? But the idea is there.
I have to unmute myself. There's one message from Yvonne, Mama Yvonne from South Africa. Deep way to understand the meaning of stillness. Thank you so much for sharing different ways of being still. Her personal story is stillness contributed to her healing process of trauma that was 19 years ago. My true testimony is that silence heals. Just be. That's a lot of wisdom coming from South Africa. So I don't see Clary. I do this in Perth. I do mornings on the beach. Yeah, I call it walk and talk meditation. Anything you want to add to that, Clara? And then we're going to hand it over for last words to Gary. Clara, do you want to add something to that? I see you're already muted, and yeah,
Oh,
it's late.
sorry.
It's getting late.
It's very late or whatever, and I do appreciate everything that you're saying and that we've been talking about, because I do so much of this with people on the beach in the mornings, and yeah, I yeah, I just I do I yeah, I can't say much more.
Okay.
I've not been able to see much or whatever. I think I sent you a screenshot of what I'm getting, because I can't see you. I get funny things on my screen. So
Okay.
yeah, sorry. Anyway.
Okay, Clara. Well, I know that this is a topic that is really close to your heart, and you're doing a lot of work that is related to stillness and also mental health issues. So thank you for that, Clara. We have 3 more minutes. Gary, is there anything that we haven't touched on? Yes, there are many things, and I know that Nicolette also asked, can you tell us a little bit more about Tai Chi? Well, I think we have to invite you one more time to tell you more about Tai Chi. But is there anything you want to share with us that you feel that you haven't said yet?
Oh, well, thank you for the learning I've done here too, because a lot of you have very interesting backgrounds and experiences. And so I'm very honored to be invited to share this with you. A short version of Tai Chi is that it's often called moving meditation. It's also a healing art. Qi Gong, it's a spin-off of Tai Chi, is about health and healing. So there are people professionally trained in that. And then it is actually a martial art too, although not taught as much that way anymore. But it's very much based on, the yin and yang. It's based on yin energy, female, softness, accommodating, allowing, acceptance. So it's a paradigm that we're not, again, in mainstream our culture, that's not what we're used to. We're used to control and aggression. And of course, we can easily see we have too much aggression in the world right now. That's what a Taoist would say. So we need much more of this tender, healing energy in our universe. And Tai Chi is one art form that can help you with that. If you have a good teacher, anybody can learn something from Tai Chi. You can adapt the moves a lot if you have, as I say, the right teacher. So and for those who don't like to sit too much to meditate, you learn a series of moves that you can practice and move with them. So you don't have to sit down and try to be quiet. Thank you,
Yeah.
Inga, for the invitation.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Gary. And I also saw that Renee, can you give us more tips on the websites or YouTube? There are quite some. Just type in, Tai Chi, and there's, 30-day programs, and there's a lot of to do Tai Chi and Qigong. And there's a lot to do now about Tai Chi walking. Also something that I just do now when I'm on the phone, I do at the same time, my Tai Chi walking, and it does help, and it's so controlled, and you use all the muscles in your system, but it's really something to relax. So just look it up, and if Gary has any more information, then I'm sure he will share that with us. Thank you again, Gary, for being here. It was really something to learn a lot from, and I really feel with you. It's to emphasize in this crazy world right now, we need stillness.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's finish up by that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
See you, Vicky.
Thanks, Ingen. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Mary Jane. Bye, Gary. Bye, Inga.
Bye, Patty. Bye, Inga. Bye, Renee.